are able to detect the color of the ambient light in your environment and then adjust the colors on the displays so that white always appears as white rather than yellow or blue. A major difference between the two is that the iPad mini 6 has a fully laminated display versus a non-laminated one on the iPad 8. That means that with the iPad mini 6, the image looks like it's painted right on top of the display, and with the iPad 9, if you look at the edge, it will look like it's under a sheet of glass. Now, a lot of people ask me if this actually makes a difference, so let me break it down for you. For most things that I do, which includes surfing the web, using different productivity apps, watching content, editing photos, and even for gaming, I haven't really noticed a difference because unless you're looking at the edge of the display, you don't really have depth perception, so it's very hard to tell the difference. Now, when it comes to using an Apple Pencil, then there's a more noticeable difference because on the iPad mini 6, the tip of the pencil looks like it's touching the content that's being created. With the iPad 9, if you look at a little bit of an angle, you can see that the tip of the pencil is slightly separated from the content because of the air gap. The iPad mini 6 is compatible with the second generation Apple Pencil versus the iPad 9, which still uses the first generation. Now, I use both and I've had no issues, but if you're a serious artist or you just want the best Apple Pencil experience, that would be the iPad mini 6. Now, personally, I like the second generation Apple Pencil better. I like the flat edge, I like the double tap functionality, and I like that it pairs, charges, and is stored on the side of the iPad mini. This way, it's always ready to use. Now let's talk about the camera systems, where both iPads received an upgrade this year. If you're getting value from this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. When we look at the front-facing cameras, we see that both iPads were upgraded to an ultra-wide 12-megapixel f2.4 camera. Both now offer a feature called Center Stage, where the ultra-wide camera can detect and track a subject as it moves through the frame. It can then zoom in and out to keep the subject framed in a center, and it gives the impression that the camera is panning or tilting to follow the person. This feature works really great for video calls with FaceTime or Zoom, and then even with apps like TikTok. Now, looking at the rear-facing cameras, the iPad mini 6 comes out ahead with a wide 12-megapixel f1.8 camera versus an 8-megapixel f2.4 on the iPad 9. Both have digital zoom of up to 5x, but only the iPad mini 6 has a flash, which happens to be a quad LED True Tone flash. And this will only matter to you if you plan on taking pictures with your iPad in low light. The iPad mini 6 camera can also shoot at 4K at up to 60 frames per second versus only 1080p on the iPad 9, and it could shoot slower and higher resolution slow motion. So if that's something that you like to do, keep that in mind. Now, one last difference that I saw is that the iPad 9 has HDR for photos and the iPad mini 6 has Smart HDR 3. I always like to remind people that when you compare camera systems on tablets, you should take into account whether you actually plan on using them. If you're always going to shoot photos and video with your phone, then it doesn't really matter. But if you plan on using these devices to create some content, then it does. There is one really important difference that I want to make sure that I talk about because it could help you decide between the two. So if you plan on doing a lot of typing, the iPad 9 has a ton of options in terms of keyboard cases, and they provide a really comfortable typing experience. I'll link to a few of my favorites in the description. Now, there are keyboard cases for the iPad mini 6, but keep in mind that the keyboard is the width of the iPad mini, which means that it's usable, but it's pretty small and will be less comfortable to use. You can also connect both iPads to an external keyboard and a mouse, which works well if you're working at home, but it's not the best portable solution. Now, ultimately, if you plan on doing a lot of typing and you want to use a keyboard case, I'm going to give the edge to the iPad 9. Now, both iPads received new chips with upgraded processing power. The iPad 9 now comes with the A13 Bionic chip, and the iPad mini 6 comes with the more powerful A15 Bionic. Now, I'll quickly give you benchmark scores, and then we'll talk about multitasking and gaming. For single core performance, the iPad mini 6 only look at the numbers. For basic things like surfing the web, watching YouTube, going on Netflix, working with productivity apps, you're not really going to notice a difference. Both iPads are very responsive, they're quick to wake up from sleep, apps open really quickly, and switching between apps is practically instant. I'll continue